At the beginning of the war, I lived with my family in the city of Bobruisk, in the Republic of Belarus. June 21st was a normal day, with no foreboding of doom, although the military state in the country was one of readiness. On June 22nd, at 4 a.m., without any warning, the army of Germany, armed to the teeth, attacked the USSR. They started to bomb many areas, destroying everything in their path. Only at 12 noon on that day did the fascist invasion become known to the entire population of the country, when the government's representative officially informed everyone of this by radio. My family was in a panic, just like all of the others. On the 26th of June, an announcement came on the radio that the airborne assault force of 40 German airplanes would bomb our city, and the Germans would capture it. They decided that before the planes came, we would leave the city and cross the Berzina River to spend the night at a nearby village. We planned to return to the city on the next day. Upon our return, we were informed that the Soviet army was ready to blow up the bridge over the Berzina to deter Germans. We went to the eastern edge of Belarus to a region known as Klimovichy. In a short while, our husbands were taken into the army. The women and children were taken to the first city of the Russian Federation in our past, called Roslavl. I was traveling with my two children. My daughter was about 1 year old and my son was about 4. After a night on the street in Roslavl, they put us onto a railway commodity platform during a thunderstorm. We didn't know where they were taking us. In Klimovichy, they had given us 2 loaves of black bread for the journey. On the first night, the bread disappeared. Our journey's provisions were stolen from us. I was forced to send my older son, who was about 4 years old, to the soldiers' train when they stopped near us. He asked the soldiers to give him something to drink or some kind of food. When our train stopped near a small lake, the women with little children went down in order to fill bottles with water and feed their children. After 6 or 7 days, the children became seriously ill, and I stepped down from the train at a junction in the city of Ruzhaevka in the Republic of Moldova. I went to the local authorities, and seeing our condition, they put the children into the hospital and drove my mother and me to a little village about 12 kilometers away. At the village, there was a state-owned communal dairy farm where we were given a small, uninhabited house with a large brick stove, many cockroaches and bedbugs. They gave us some food and other supplies, as well as bringing us a big wagon full of straw with which we fueled the stove. My son lived, but my daughter, at 1.5 years of age, died. Afterwards, my son was often sick. Upon receiving letters from my sister, we went to live with her in the city of Semyonov. While there, we lived with the forest ranger who had taken in my sister and helped her. We survived by cleaning private houses. We were not able to scrape out an existence in this area, so my mother went to another city in the Shakunya region. There she met a good woman who agreed to rent a small room to us. While my mother was away, we received the first letter from my sister's husband. After an urgent reply to him, my sister received a certificate that allowed her to receive monthly assistance. The officials started to believe that my husband was on active duty, and began to give me little financial assistance as well.
Upon my mother's return, all 6 members of my and my sister's family went to live in the small room rented out to us. My sister and I went to the city's center every day to look for a job and to take our sons to nursery school, because the children were fed there. My sister's son was 3 years old at the time. Neither my sister nor I could find jobs, even though she had graduated from a teaching institute and I was a certified accountant. This was because we did not have the documents to prove it. After 2 months of constant searching, I decided to go to a factory on the outskirts of the city. The director of a plant was a very kind man and hired me. After a week, the chief accountant was fired because of incompetence, and I was put in his place. My job in the factory was mainly to make sure that orders for the army were filled correctly. While I worked there, the orders did not have any mistakes. A few weeks after I became chief accountant, the director was taken into the army. He gave us his house with a small bedroom for our 2 families to live in.
My husband had managed to contact us by finding our letters in Moscow while he was stationed there. He found them by going to my uncle's house. My husband did not find my uncle there because he had evacuated earlier. He suspected that I would try to contact my uncle and broke open the mailbox to find our addresses. He then sent all of his documents to ensure that we were given assistance. During the war, he became a lieutenant of judicial service. After my sister and I found jobs, my mother decided that it was necessary to dig up a piece of undeveloped land and grow a garden. The work was very hard because the land had never been used by anybody and had many big spreading roots. On weekends and holidays, in the evenings and at night, we dug up about 15 acres. At night time, from about 3 a.m. until the beginning of the workday, we carried horse manure on trays to fertilize the garden. Later, we began to raise chickens, and our last achievement was the acquisition of a female goat to give the children milk. The amount of bread we received each day was about 300 grams. We did not have any fats, meats, or other products. The products from our garden helped to give us necessary nutrition. People who lived in the area also helped us. Many nights after work, I went to the railroad station and helped to clean the rails from under a lot of snow in order to earn some extra money. In the fall, on days when I didn't work, I went on foot to collective farms owned by the state to help with harvest, again to earn some more money. After the liberation of our city, I decided to go there with the goal of bringing my family back to Bobruisk. I obtained leave from my director and permission from the militia. I had to switch trains twice, in Moscow and in Minsk. From the train window, I observed a devastating picture of ruined cities and villages. Some villages were reduced to rows of charred chimneys. All along the railroad there were piles and piles of broken war machinery. When I arrived in Minsk, the completely destroyed city horrified me. From the makeshift railroad station, hastily assembled from wood, it was possible to see the city's edge. Debris littered the streets. Bobruisk wasn't badly damaged, and after I spent the night at the station, because I was afraid to go through the city while it was dark, I went to my house. The Ukrainian woman who lived there confirmed that my husband had visited to check on the house. I informed the woman of my desire to bring my family back to live there. Right after that, I went to the place where I had worked before the war. I found it completely destroyed. Standing nearby, also surveying the ruins, was a co-worker and friend of mine from before the war. He kindly offered me a place to stay that night. I returned to my family the next morning. We left as soon as my boss let me because he couldn't find a replacement. So in November we finally went back home. The Ukrainian woman living in my house wouldn't let us in when we came there. A man holding the position of chairman of tenant board during the German occupation tried to keep us from entering. I asked the current owner if we could calmly discuss the situation. She locked herself in the bedroom. The next day her husband came and asked us to let them live in the house while they found a new one. We lived in peace and parted in a friendly fashion. In a few days I went to the place where the family of my older brother had lived. He, his wife, his 3 girls, and his wife's parents had been killed by the Nazis, along with many others in the Jewish community. The person who had sold this house to my brother lived there at the time. He, without argument, left within a couple of days. I moved my sister, her family, and my mother into that house. When the wife and children of my brother who had died on the front came, I also moved them into it. Each morning, all 3 of our families were together in my house. We all lived amicably and ate at the same table. Of course, the food was scanty, but we didn't complain because we knew that the end of the war was near. May 9th is one of the happiest days of my life. I still celebrate it every year.
День Победы, День Победы, День Победы.